известных раввинов нашего времени Манис Фридман в прямом эфире отвечает на вопросы наших слушателей. Вы услышите мнение самой мудрой книги человечества – Библии, о самых сложных проблемах, стоящих перед современным миром. Присылайте ваши вопросы заранее на наш имейл info@rusa.fm или во время передачи по СМС 347 460 08 77.
Добрый день всем, кто сейчас настроен на радио USA. В эфире Thank God It's Tuesday, передача, которая выходит только по вторникам, и за которую мы безумно благодарны Всевышнему и, конечно же, раввину Манису Фридману, который проводит с нами этот час и помогает нам видеть мир немножко лучше, светлее, мудрее и... В общем, то, что нам нужно в наше непростое время. Вопрос, который я хочу сегодня ему задать, это... Как научиться не обижаться, потому что все сейчас обижает, и обидно за все, и личные обиды, и за державу обидно, и со всех сторон вокруг кругом обидно. Вот как вот от этого состояния избавиться, и возможно ли это? Вот с этим вопросом я сейчас обращаюсь к нашему замечательному раввину Манису Фридману. Rabbi Friedman, hello, thank God it's Tuesday. Amazing to have you with us. As always, huge blessing for us. Thank you. And what I just said to our audience is that it seems that the word of the day is insult. It seems that this is what we're feeling nonstop. We're feeling it on the big picture, obviously, first and foremost. We're insulted by the way the world has been treating us meaning Israel, Jewish people, since the worst atrocity that has happened to us recently on October 7th. And of course, we're insulted. We're insulted by everybody's treatment. I mean, just this week, last week, a poll came out in colleges, and the majority, I think it's 51%, but it doesn't matter. 51% of students ages 18 to 24 thinks Israel should be done away with and given to Arabs, Palestinians. This is the popular opinion among students, nothing new, we know about it. The Me Too movement, which was formed in 2017, okay, not so long ago, but the sole purpose of this huge movement that we've been talking about for the last 7 years since it's been formed is that this is the movement that protects women's rights against sexual violence. No worse sexual violence has taken place, I don't know, on my lifetime. I don't know, whatever, I don't want to compare, but it was worse than anything we could imagine. And it took 5 weeks for anybody to say anything from this particular group that's been formed just for this particular purpose, reason, and has been giving the time of day and spotlights just for this particular purpose. I mean, this is a big picture. Of course, I want to talk about the little things, the petty things, the individual things that also make us feel insulted, which is like a really terrible feeling. I think feeling insulted is probably the most negative, the most depressing of any feelings that a person can feel personally or, again, not just individually, but collectively, but still. I think this is the worst feeling that a person can feel, and I think this feeling is a little bit taking over the world. So I kind of want to talk to you about this particular feeling, how not to take things personally, how not to feel insulted about big things and little things.
Well, good afternoon. How are you?
I'm sorry for the mouthful.
I just want to tell you, the music you play, I don't know who chooses your music, but it's really good.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Good choices of music. So it's very enjoyable to wait and listen to all the music, and it's great.
Yeah, we've been playing a lot of Israeli music lately, and it's really, really good. And yes, we do have a wonderful music editor, Oleg, that we're giving him a shout out right now. Thank you, Oleg, for the great music from Rabbi Manis Friedman.
He deserves a plug.
Thank you.
We shouldn't feel insulted. We should feel outraged. We should feel pity, concern. What's going to happen to this world? Is it going to continue on this path until it destroys itself completely? It's already living an impossible lifestyle, at least the West. It's living an impossible lifestyle. It must lead to decadence. It must lead to disappearing. It's not a pro-life. I don't mean that in the political sense. It is not a life-supportive system. It all leads to the end. It's a dead end. So something has got to change, something has got to give, because this is not working. The liberal mind has gone insane, which it turns out is the inevitable conclusion of secular thinking. You know, we used to make this philosophical argument, why would you want to believe in evolution, which basically says that you have no purpose or reason for existing, when you can believe in a creator who believes in you? Why would you choose the secular over the intimate? So that was one of the arguments in favor of believing in God, because if you believe in God, then life has a reason, a purpose, a goal. If you believe in evolution, life has no purpose, no reason, no goal, no objective, and you can't really take anything too seriously. Because whatever is happening, we're evolving. Wait and see. How can you say this is bad for us, this is good for us? How do you know that? We're evolving. And as you evolve, the weakest, of course, will perish, and only the fittest will survive. So what are we putting up such a fight over? Let the process happen. Let evolution take its course, and whatever will be, will be. The dinosaurs became extinct. Doesn't seem to bother anybody. So if human beings become extinct, why would it bother anybody? Point is, secular thinking leads to insanity. It leads to nihilism. It leads to cynicism. It leads to purposeless existence. That's crazy. That is crazy. When you don't have a purpose to life, you're insane. So we got to catch this before it goes over the edge and there'll be nothing left. So, insulted? We're insulted by whom? By people who don't know what a woman is? Now, we want them to appreciate the fact that we're the chosen people. They can't even appreciate that a woman is a woman. What are you expecting from them? How can they understand chosen people when they think men can get pregnant? So it really is a pity. It really is a scary pity. The world is headed for extinction. And it's not an exaggeration. suicide is becoming really sensible and appealing. It makes so much sense to quit if there is no purpose or reason to live. This is really a dangerous and that's why the more educated in secular thinking a person is, the crazier he becomes. We're seeing it very clearly. The presidents of the Ivy League schools have no idea what life is about. They have no idea right from wrong, left from right, nothing. Is it malicious? I think it would be better if it was. Okay, so you have an evil plan, and you're working your plan. I don't think there is a plan. I think they're really crazy. They are as crazy as they sound. So why are we insulted? We shouldn't be insulted. Whose opinion should we take seriously enough to be insulted by it? There's nobody, except our fellow Jews. So really, we're not the ones in trouble. But speaking about insult, let's go a little segue into the Torah that we're reading. Joseph's brothers sell him into slavery. Really evil plan. He eventually ends up in Egypt. They didn't sell him to Egypt, they sold him to Midianites, who sold him to Canaanites, who eventually sold him to Egypt. He's a very successful guy, very good-looking guy. He's got everything going for him, but life is going down. He gets a good job. The wife of his employer tries to seduce him. She fails, so she's angry and she has him arrested. So now he spends 12 years in a dungeon. He's got a couple of reasons to be bitter. By today's standards, he is justified in taking a gun and shooting up a school. He finally gets out, and things start to turn around. And he becomes the prime minister of Egypt, saves the country, enhances the country, makes Pharaoh the complete and total ruler over all the provinces. Egypt was, before Yosef, Egypt was divided into provinces, and each province had its own dictator. But because of Yosef's plan of storing food and so on, they all surrendered to Pharaoh in order to get food. And Pare became the sole ruler over all of Egypt. Joseph's accomplishment. He also instituted a law that clergy don't have to go to war or work for the government. So clergy were not enslaved. That law stands in most countries until today. Now his brothers come down to Egypt. They don't recognize him. It's been 22 years or something. He left as a teenager. But he recognizes them. And then the Torah gives us this whole drama of how he tested them. Basically, he made them miserable. He accused them of spying. What he was doing really was moving them towards complete tshuva. What is complete tshuva? If a person says, I regret my sins, I really regret my sins, because I see the consequences. The brothers actually said to each other, you know why this is happening to us? Because we sold our brother. They were doing tshuva. They accepted the punishment of what Yosef was putting them through. Of course, not knowing that he is Yosef. But that was not a complete tshuva. Why was it not a complete tshuva? Well, first of all, because what they were regretting were the consequences, not the act itself. So if a person says, I shouldn't have stolen that whatever, because now I'm in jail. So are you regretting the crime or are you regretting the time? So Yosef wanted to move them past that. But he wanted to move them past another thing. If a person says, I did something terrible. In fact, I can't even believe I did it. So bad, so bad. I can't imagine how did I allow myself to do that? What he's saying is, I'm not that bad of a person. So I don't understand, why did I do something so bad? Or in different words, what I did was bad. I didn't intend to be bad. I'm not a vicious person. I lost my temper. So I regret losing my temper. But I'm not regretting who I am, because I'm basically a good guy. Or I did it only because people provoked me and my situation made me. In other words, you're confessing a partial sin. Then your tshuva is naturally a partial tshuva. If you only partially sinned, and you're regretting that, then your tshuva is also a partial tshuva. The only time the tshuva is complete is if you sinned complete. So when you start justifying or minimizing or rationalizing, yes, what I did was terrible, but... so your tshuva also has a but. So Yosef says to them, when he finally identifies himself, and they are sure that he's going to take revenge for what they did to him. What does Yosef say? Yosef says, I am not angry at you. I have no hard feelings towards you. I have no complaint even. Because although you intended for the bad, God, who runs the world, intended it all for the good. God brought me here, not you. God made all this happen, not you. And why did God make it happen? Well, look, I saved the whole region from hunger. It's all good. What an incredible attitude. But then the question is asked by some of the commentaries, why did he have to say you intended bad? If he wanted to say, God runs the world, God arranged all of this, and so I have no complaints to you, that's beautiful. Why did he have to get in that jab? Like, you are rotten, but... Why did he need to say that? What he was saying is, you are already admitting that what you did was terrible. I don't have to tell you that. But you might be thinking that you didn't really intend all of this to happen had you known. No, you had really bad intentions. you have some serious problems. Do a complete tshuva by recognizing that your sin was complete. You planned it. You schemed it all out. It was premeditated. You did it intentionally. Nobody forced you. Nobody tricked you. Nobody lied to you. Take full responsibility and do a full tshuva. But in the process, what we have learned, they sold him into slavery. And yet Yosef says, no, you didn't bring me here. They didn't bring it. They didn't sell him into slavery. He's not in Egypt because they sold him to traders, slave traders. How can that be true? So here's an even more surprising element to the story. After Yosef says to them, you intended for the bad, but God intended it for the good, and he led me here, and he made me the viceroy of Egypt so that I could save all these people from hunger, including you. The next thing he says to them is, I'm going to give you presents. I'm going to send food home with you to my father. I'm going to invite him to come here and live with me. What's with the presents? Why is he giving them presents? To prove that he's not angry? I don't know why he would need to prove it. And I don't know if that proves anything. Sometimes giving a gift can be insulting. Here, I gave you a gift. It's all fine now. I sold you into slavery. You sold me into slavery. And I really should be angry, but no, I'll give you a gift and everything is fine. It could feel a little dismissive. Here, I'll give you a free lunch. Not only wasn't he angry at them because he didn't believe that they sold him into slavery, but that God did it. How did God do it? God didn't come down to Canaan and take Yosef and sell him to Midianites. How did God do it? God works through his agents. In this case, God sold him into slavery, into Egypt, through the brothers. So the brothers facilitated God's blessing for Yosef. So Yosef said, in effect, when you're eating in someone's house, you thank the waiter who serves you the food. Now, you know it's not his food. Like for wine, the wine belongs to the host, but you thank the waiter. Why? For bringing you the wine. Yosef said, what happened was great, and it's coming from the host, from God, but how was it served? How was it delivered? Through you. Well, here's a tip for your services. So not only did he not feel anger or resentment or blame them, he actually gave them credit for being God's messengers and facilitating the plan that God had for him. That's a pretty noble attitude. I don't know too many people who could come up with that response to people who really seem to have caused you a lot of misery. But here's the punchline. No human being can hurt you. Ever, ever. If a human being succeeds in hurting you, It's because that was the divine plan. That is part of your fate. It's part of your history. That's what makes you you, and what makes your life your life. Those who had bad intentions, oh yeah, they really enjoyed hurting you, but they couldn't hurt you if it wasn't already in the plan.
Rabbi Friedman, a few questions, if I may, at this point. Well, first of all, it's how can we, in our state right now, because we're sort of like 12 years in a dungeon right now, like Yosef was, how did he maintain, what can we learn from him? How did he maintain, and this is a big one, did not feel insulted by his fate that Hashem dealt him, that God dealt for him? How did he maintain good spirit, knowing who is doing it to him, and didn't ruin that relationship?
I'm going to compare it to parents. When parents do things wrong, certainly in the child's mind, the child is very resentful, insulted, hurt, maybe even frightened. But as the child gets older, he starts to understand, even if my parents did make a mistake and do something damaging, they certainly had no intentions of damaging me. Who wants a damaged child? They did it because they are my parents, and you're supposed to parent your child. So they were parenting. If something went wrong in the process, I have no complaints. You parent. You get everything right. Parenting is always right. The detail, maybe I don't agree with. The method, the manner, the tone of voice, whatever. But what were they doing? Plotting to hurt me? No, they were parenting. And for this, they deserve credit. That's with human beings who can actually make mistakes. With God, you apply the same idea. I don't like how God runs the world. I'm saying two things. I'm saying God runs the world, and I'm saying I don't like how he's doing it. As some atheists said, with all the suffering in the world, we would be better off without God. What a crazy statement. That's suggesting that all suffering comes from God, and if there was no God, there would be no suffering. No, if there was no God, there would be no world in which to suffer. And if I mentioned the story, it's a cute analogy. This old couple are sitting in their old car that they have been driving for 40 years. And the wife says, Sam, you remember when we first got married? We sat so close in the car. And now look, I'm sitting at this end of the bench, and you're sitting on that end of the bench. Look at the distance between us. Why did you move away? And Sam, who is trying to concentrate on the driving and can barely see over the steering wheel, he says, I moved away? If I move away, we crash. I couldn't have moved away. I'm the driver. If anybody moved away, Must have been you. So for the atheist to say we would be better off without a driver altogether. Oh yeah? It's a silly thing to say, right? So we can say, I don't like how God runs the world. But God better run the world, otherwise we're definitely in trouble. So God runs the world. Does he sometimes cause me pain? Well, obviously. If he's running the world, then he's causing me the pain. Do I take that as an insult? I take it as a compliment. He keeps running the world. Every time it gets off track, he puts it back on track. Every time we're on the verge of killing ourselves, he stops us. So he's running the world. He's parenting. Do I have to agree with how he does it and in what tone he does it? I'm grateful that he does it. But in this case, knowing that God doesn't make mistakes, I can only be surprised and puzzled. Knowing that God is doing everything right, why do so many things feel wrong? You know, I don't know. It's a puzzle. But insulted?
Rabbi Friedman, but how do we not take it personally? Let's go on the pettier level, not just when it comes to, not just, especially when it doesn't come to God, but on a personal level. We're constantly insulted. We're insulted a zillion times a day. I mean, we're insulted by how someone treats us, says something. Whenever we do a lot and don't get enough in return, we're insulted. There are just so many reasons to be insulted. I mean, I don't know if each person thinks about it, how many times a day they get this insulted feeling. I'm sure it's a lot. I'm sure it's more than a handful. So how do we not do that? How do we stop taking things in a certain way where the result is insult?
I have a very simple method that is guaranteed to work. Eliminate the word I or me from your conversations. Never say I, never say me. All of a sudden, nobody's insulting you. But what you're describing is a person who is too hyper aware of himself. And so everything is an insult. You said good morning, but you didn't say it with a smile. You told me you like the sweater I'm wearing, which means you didn't like the sweater I wore yesterday. You're making yourself miserable because you're so focused and aware of yourself. See, if you talk to me, you didn't say the right thing. If you don't say anything at all, you're ignoring me. I can't win. Take the I out of all your sentences, and you'll notice that people are pretty nice. Nobody's out to get you.
Rabbi Friedman, I hear it all across the board. I do. Don't even get a thank you. I am such a hard worker. I try so hard. And look, the boss, he was rude to me anyway. He doesn't appreciate what I do. Or, I hear things like that all the time. When it's not, when the relationship is not equal, when someone does more, when someone is nicer, the other person is maybe wrapped up in something else. So there's so many different reasons to be insulted, and people get insulted. I mean,
there are too many.
Too many. But how
too many reasons. Yes, there are too many.
Is it truly realistic to take I out of everything, even though I is the only person who is functioning from the time we wake up to the time we go to sleep. It's still all about what we do in this world. So how can there not be an I?
I guess we are functioning means I'm not stuck in myself. If you're stuck in yourself, you're not functional. Functioning means you can greet another person, you can understand another person, you can work with another person, you can work for another person. Otherwise, you're not functional. A person who wakes up and is depressed because he's not getting everything he needs out of life, that's functional? That's a dysfunction. If you're functional, it means you're moving past yourself. That's functional. If you're stuck on yourself, you're glued to the spot. You're not functional. So the definition of life, and we really need to shout this from the rooftops, the definition of life is, it's not about me. That's not being noble, it's not being holy, it's not being mystical, spiritual. It is the definition of life. Life means not about me. All about me is the end of life. That's why the secular way of thinking, which is always about me, leads to death. It does not enhance life. So it's not a coincidence. Secular people are pro-abortion, no matter what stage. They're also pro-assisted suicide. They're also pro-birth control. Anything that leads to death, they're for it. There's a pattern here, and it's undeniable. The secular is focused on self, and that leads to the end of life in every way.
Rabbi Friedman, but the way we feel right now is also individual. I mean, it's because of what's happening in the world collectively, but we have our own personal pain, and we have our own personal concern, and we have our own personal hard time dealing with what we see happening in the world today. Not only what's happening with Israel, what you said, the world is destroying itself, and it's very, very clear, and it's very hard not to to take it all in stride and understand that there is a driver, and we have to accept it. This is how things have to happen right now. But at the same time, how do we best deal with this not such easy feeling, which is right now within each and every one of us? Is it
that's the perfect question. That is not a complaint. That is a really good question. We know what's going on. What are we supposed to do about it? There's no confusion here. We're not confused. I just spoke about this to somebody the other day. How hypocritical, how inconsistent, how foolish is it for the left, whoever that is, for the woke people, to insist men can get pregnant. But if he does get pregnant, we hate him because he's overpopulating the world. He should have been practicing birth control. Can you make up your mind? You insist that men can have their period and they can have babies, but they shouldn't. They should practice birth control. They should have vasectomies. You're so cuckoo. You're talking out of both sides of your brain, and you don't know which direction you're going in. We're not confused because we're asking the right question. The world is falling apart. What are we supposed to do? And we know that it's falling apart for a reason, and that we are partners in that plan and in that goal. So, what's our part of the job? Very good question. If everyone asked that question, we would already have a perfect world.
Override.
What is God trying to tell us? See, it's a little bit unfair to take a lesson from Yosef, to not be angry at his brothers, not complain to them at all, because it was all God's plan, and look how well that plan turned out. Okay, so now he can be very generous. What if the plan didn't turn out so right? It would still be God's plan, not the brother's fault. But would he be so generous with them? Would he still feel, oh, you didn't do anything to cause me any problems? Oh, really? Anyway, so did Yosef feel this way before he became the viceroy of Egypt? When he was being dragged from one nation to the other, from the Midianites to the Canaanites, and from the Canaanites to the Egyptians, and when he was thrown into the dungeon, was he thinking, this is all God's doing, it has nothing to do with my brothers? Obviously, because otherwise he's no hero. Sure, when you become the viceroy of a country, you can forgive your brothers. That's easy. But while you're in the problem, while you're in the pain, can you then be so big-minded? High-minded? Yeah, that's the trick. So where do we get that strength from? Well, first of all, we have been there so many times. Not personally, but as a people. And we do have a collective memory. We know we've been there, we've heard the stories, we read about it in the Torah. We've been there. And we thought it was all over and things are terrible and that God has abandoned us, he doesn't like us anymore. It always turned out to be wrong. So a little patience, and we'll see again how that thinking is wrong. God is bringing us around to a very good conclusion. Funny way of getting there? Well, that's all part of the process. But why should we have any doubts that this time is any different? It's been this way every time. So we're not born yesterday. And we should act that way. We've been around the block a few times. We've seen this happen before. Some schmendrick decides he can take on the Jewish people. Don't you learn a lesson? Don't you see what's going on? You cannot start up with the Jewish people and not end up with a disaster for yourself. I mean, particularly with Israel today. 5 wars. You lost every one of them. Embarrassingly. You think maybe you should try something else? No, you're going to try again? It's insanity. So, even before we see the victory, and before we see the good news, and before we see the positive outcome, come on, we've been there, we know what to expect. If we've learned anything at all, even if you're not biblically based, but history, even recent history.
Just no one said it's going to be easy. Hasn't been easy all this time.
Yeah, and we're not comfortable or happy about it being painful and tragic. Nobody's happy about that. But if you're saying, what is God doing? Come on, you know what God is doing. He's bringing the world to its perfection. It may take a little scrubbing and a little surgical repairs, which we don't like, and we shouldn't celebrate it, and we shouldn't accept it passively. But the long run, the big picture, come on, we know where we're going.
Rabbi Friedman, amazing. Thank you so much. And thank you very much. I want to give a huge shout out to Beis Hana for the new strategy that they came up with. And that is they're getting a huge, not they, you and them are getting a huge seminar of college girls together in Florida, and I hear it's going extremely well. We're promoting it on the radio because it's an amazing program, an amazing thing that you're doing. Right now there's almost 200 girls, and there's still room for more, and all of these girls, they're college students who have witnessed terrible things this year, who have gone through tremendous hardships this year, emotionally and physically, and they're going to be empowered during their college break, during their vacation time, in a nice St. Pete's, Florida setting with terrific teachers. You're going to be there, and all the phenomenal Beis Hana teachers, and then they can take all this knowledge and all this strength back to their campuses, and this is the way to spread light, for sure. Thank you so much for this amazing opportunity that you're giving to these young ladies. Fantastic. So thank you so much for that, for so much more, for the women's retreat that's going to come right after. Oh, and by the way, if anybody wants to snorkel and study.org is where people need to call, rather to go on the site, snorkelandstudy.org. I'm not mixing that up, yes. And this is where you can find out more about this amazing program for college student ladies, girls. And Rabbi Friedman, amazing. Thank you so much for everything that you do, for the light, for the clarity, for the wisdom that is the only thing that's keeping us sane these days. This is just where it's at. Everything else is not so much. Thank you for it, and we look forward to next week.
Are you planning to come?
I'd love to, but I can't this time around. I'll go to the next one, but this is amazing. This is for women. It's incredible. It's it's just the best thing that can happen right now. And I wish I could. It's just my work and everything that's going on. I can't take time off. But
don't you need a vacation?
Yeah, very much overdue.
To Florida. Yeah.
But,
so we were expecting, once this campus ugliness started to be noticed, we were expecting a huge crowd. People who just want to get away from the insanity for a couple of days of healthy thinking, of normal thinking. I think it's going to be very good for them.
It's terrific.
They need this vacation.
They need this vacation, and they need this empowerment, and they need to, and this unity, because the word is really unity in a very healthy environment with very healthy group of people and amazing leaders. And snorkelandstudy.org, I so recommend for everybody to check it out who have girls college age who can join, and this is just amazing. And then this is something that does not leave you once you leave this program. I know it for sure, because I go to the ladies' programs and I take it away, and it does not dissolve when I come back. It just keeps on going and keeps on getting stronger. And Rabbi Friedman, thank you so much. Thank you for all the work that you do on daily basis, and thank you. We look forward to our next Thank God It's Tuesday. Have a great week. Only good news.
Amen. You too.
Thank you. Ну а всем, кто нас слушал, большое вам спасибо. Еще раз хочу рассказать о том, что там ждет женщин, что в этом году студентки колледжа, которые подверглись совершенно невероятным унижением, антисемитские выходки, провокации, агрессии, все это происходит у нас в Америке, уму непостижимо. В общем, вот эта организация Бейс-Хана, основанная раввином Манисом Фридманом очень много лет тому назад, приглашает еврейских девушек-студенток на эти зимние каникулы в Сент-Пит, Флорида, на программу Snorkel and Study. Здесь девушки окунаются не только в воды Флориды, но и в атмосферу оздоровления духа, укрепления тела, знаний и веры. Они отдыхают и набираются сил в обществе сверстниц со всего мира и под руководством замечательных учителей, таких как Манис Фридман, Rabbi Manis Friedman и другие прекрасные учителя Бейс-Ханы. Программа существует уже 18 лет, но сегодня она важна как никогда, и она намного круче и больше в этом году, потому что туда присоединяется неимоверное количество девочек. Это просто здорово, поэтому snorkelandstudy.org. Посмотрите на веб-сайте, узнайте больше и посылайте ваших девушек, дочерей, внучек на эту программу, потому что вот только так мы можем сделать этот мир лучше, крепче, умнее, светлее и, в общем, более правильным. Спасибо огромное всем, кто слушал сегодня передачу Thank God It's Tuesday, и прощаюсь со всеми до следующей недели.